G'day team and welcome to Martial Arts Business Success. My name's Phil Britton.
And I'm Graham McDonald.
And we have the one and only Mr. Dave Kovar. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad to be here, guys.
Well, guys, what an absolutely awesome podcast we have for you guys. For the next 4, we're going to be diving into some really good topics, good subject matters from someone who's been in the industry for such a long time, somebody who's, travelled the world and got to seeing so many instructors and schools, so just an amazing wealth of knowledge that we could then share on and impart to all you other school owners out there. So in saying that, we're going to kick it off with topic number 1, which is how to last 30 plus years, and in particular, how long was it?
So November 1978, so 30, going on 38 years in the business, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So, how to last 30 plus years and still enjoy it. Wow. Graham, what have you got?
Look, I guess starting first, because we're a big believer, begin with the end in mind. So,
right.
How did you find yourself on this crazy journey where you are today? If you were to backtrack a little bit, do you think?
Right. It's pretty. I mean, it's kind of interesting because when you say that, I've been in business a long time. I don't think of myself as old. I still think of myself as 19 years old. And it's interesting when you go to stuff, I realize, man, I'm the oldest guy in the room. Right? But so just like everybody else, I started martial arts when I was a kid. I wanted to do it years before I could. But finally my first art was wrestling. I started wrestling in 71, and then I started karate in 73, and that was back then. I mean, there was some schools around, but there was very few professional schools. And about 6 months out of high school, I was teaching part-time for my instructor, but I didn't get paid a lot. Or sometimes he would forget to pay me.
Yeah.
And so I had another job as well, and I never really thought. I mean, I knew I was going to do martial arts my whole life, but it wasn't something you thought of going to do as a career. And I come from a family of college graduates. My mom and my dad and my brother and my sister, and that was kind of the expected road, so to speak. And so I'm going to junior college, and one of my students, or like co-students, the guy that was a couple years older than me, to open up a school. And he'd been in business for about a year and it didn't work out. And so my instructor said, hey, Dave, you ought to think about this. So I checked it out, and I got a loan from my parents, a savings secured loan, and it had 6 students. And when I took it over, and I think they're all scholarship too, right?
Yeah.
But my rent was only $260 a month, and I was living at home. And so I just kind of started and kind of struggled for a long time. I mean, there's always the struggle, right?
Sure.
There's always the struggle, but and then stuff happened. Like I was painting houses by day for a while and teaching the evenings, and then in about 1984, 85, when you guys were just little whippersnappers, Karate Kid came out, and overnight, boom, things changed.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'd already had the largest kids program that I knew of in Sacramento County. I had about 10 or 11 kid students. The rest, I didn't keep stats, but I probably had 100 members, I'm guessing. It was a pretty good sized school. Mm. And but I gave everybody a deal, so there was, I was never making any money, right? Yeah. So when the Karate Kid came out, I was kind of poised, because I enjoyed working with the kids, and so we just kind of blew up, so I kind of was able to quit my day job, I think in like 86, and then go back to being full time, and my brother became my partner in 87, and we just kind of grew. In the early 90s, we moved to this building we're at now, and we've been here, and then we started expanding locations, and here it is, 2016 already, and so it kind of like you kind of fall into it, and there's still. I mean, the bottom line is there's so much to learn. The difference now is that we make less mistakes. We still make plenty of mistakes, and I don't by any chance feel like we have it figured out, but we're a lot farther along than we were 38 years ago.
That's cool. Dave, look, you mentioned that professional martial arts schools were not around, so therefore the education process the information. How did you guys, yourself and your brother, stay up to date with being in business in martial arts? How did you guys
we were really all isolated. Back when I first started, there was 18 when I did a report for college class, which I'm a 7-year junior college dropout, just so we're clear, right? But is that I did a little study for one of my business classes, and there was 18 schools in the greater Sacramento area. There's 2.3 million people in the greater Sacramento area. Now there's over 200, just to put it in perspective.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So there was a few schools. But when we started out, it was I used to have a sign outside, a flip sign that says no contracts, right? Like that was going to be a good thing, right?
Yeah.
That was And so we didn't have a clue what we were doing. And the thing is we took our cues from each other, and nobody else knew what they were doing either. And I remember one time hearing about a school, and this would have been early 80s, that did 10 grand a month, and it was like, there was no way you could do that. There was no way you could do that, right?
Yeah.
And then so I actually, the turnaround time for me that really made me realize, you know what, I can do this and make a living. I went to a June Rhee seminar. Grandmaster June Rhee is a pretty well-known martial artist in the States, and really influential in bringing martial arts to the 20th century. And I went to a seminar with him in January of 1987, and I met all these guys that were like actually quite successful by that standard. And that's when I went, wow, they can do it, I can do it. And then and so that instantly, once you see the model, and you guys know what I'm talking about, then you realize, whoa, it can be done. It's like the 4-minute mile story, right?
Yeah.
And so then and the timing was like a perfect storm. Like I said, the time, the interest for martial arts, for kids especially, was crazy. The demand was very small. I remember one time doing a first lesson for 21 kids, and that was just like a Tuesday night. I was like, okay, just, and they were, it's like we couldn't do, and every time we put out an ad in the Yellow Pages or Valpak, if we did, most of the time we didn't, because we get too flooded with students.
Wow.
And then I met Nick Kokinos of VFC in like 1990. And I got into that network, and it was now I'm seeing all these guys that are really doing stuff. And then we kind of did the Tony Robbins seminars in the late 80s, early 90s, and really just like was on the circuit to pick up everything we could and applied it into our business, and kind of started establishing systems that we still kind of do this day.
So in a nutshell, you really were just hungry for information. And
in order to be a champion, you have to fight like a challenger. And at the time, my older brother Tim, who's now retired, was my business partner, and he brought the kind of the discipline that we needed. Like for me, I still love martial arts. It's still my hobby. Like we trained this morning. Right? I love that stuff, right? I mean, it's like, it's not, I don't golf. You know what I'm saying? It's like I try to choke people while they try to hit me. And I still like that, and I hope I always do. But and that's what makes it fresh for me. But and so there's still lots of room for improvement. But,
do you think I think a good takeaway for everyone out there is it doesn't matter where you are in your journey, always be seeking out knowledge, always be learning and putting stuff inside you. Even if it's internally, externally, look without. I guess look outside of your industry and see what else you can learn. You're talking Tony Robbins seminars, help to personal development sort of area.
So there's a book called Peak by K. Anders Ericsson. I don't know if you ever heard of it or not, but it's an interesting book. He has two distinctions, and we were talking on the ride over here about just what it takes and being hungry. But what the takeaway from the book was that the success is not, and this is stuff we know, it's not the guy that has got the highest IQ or the guy that's the best athlete. It's nothing wrong with that, by the way, if you have that. But there's the two things that go into it, and this is something that I think we've done a pretty good job of, and I've done a pretty good job, honestly, because I'm not the smartest guy and I'm not the best athlete, but I have been able to self-motivate myself. That was the first thing. I have pretty high, it doesn't take a lot for me to get out of bed in the morning. And sometimes it's because I got all these issues I got to deal with, right? It's kind of, but mostly because I love what I'm doing. But the other thing is to be introspective, and that is just to kind of constantly analyze what you're doing. It's on the right track, and I go, okay, we do a pretty good job of that. It's like sometimes you get too tied up into thinking you got it figured out, and you're not willing to look at how to prove things differently. So that's kind of like I look at our team, and that's probably why we've been able to stay relatively relevant. I mean, sometimes I feel like I am behind the scenes. I think I see what the next generation, I call you guys the next generation, and doing it like, oh man, they're doing some cool stuff, and they don't, it comes up. I still refer to things as I'll say, hey, look in the Yellow Pages. I have to catch myself. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but I think that's like, there's three types of motivation. There's desperation, there's inspiration, and there's purpose.
That's cool.
And desperation, we've all been there, and you can do a lot of stuff when you're desperate, but it's temporary. You know what I'm saying? And there's inspiration. That's you go to a seminar, man, you get inspired, you do something. That's pretty cool too, but that generally tends to wear off too. But purpose, and that is having a real clear vision of where you want your school, your business, your life to go. So we call it creative vision and visit it often, being really clear, this is what I want to do.
I guess
that's what we've been strong with.
That's what we try and do with the guys at Teamer is reverse engineer. What do you envision 20 years, 30 years, however long, what's the end game look like, and can we work backwards to today, and what action steps do we need to take today to get us towards that goal? Talking about sort of, the 37 years you've been in there, the good, the bad and the ugly, is there anything that you've seen in your time, if we're talking about sort of the bad things of martial arts or instructors, or, if there was something that you would suggest people not to do, or, do you have any advice in that?
So what not to do in the martial arts business?
We've only got a short podcast.
Yeah. Well, I've done all of it. Just not all of it. There's things I've been, but I think first and foremost is you don't try not to reinvent the wheel. If you guys are doing this, find guys that know what they're doing and use them for mentors, right?
Yeah.
That's first and foremost. And then the second thing is make sure that you surround yourself with people that are not, like I said, I use this quote on the way over here, and that is not fiercely defending their mediocrity. You know what I'm saying? That are really trying to get to the next level. A lot of times we get advice that people that we shouldn't be getting advice from, And then of course when it comes to a school, where do you begin? Make sure that your environment is safe, it's friendly, that you really put a lot of emphasis on having great classes, you're not afraid to recruit new members. It's all the basics, just done consistently. And I think what happens is people have success and then they forget what got them there. And it's really, there's no real success, there's no real secrets. It's, it's show up on time with a plan and execute it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, awesome. Look, some fantastic info. I know we could be here for hours talking about this sort of topic with such a great person, but I know that we are always constantly looking to improve ourselves and self-check and whatnot. And again, that's my challenge to you guys is don't just settle for good, because that's not a standard that you should hold yourself to. Always strive to be better each and every day, whether it's physical training, whether it's business training, and again for your staff, because they look to you as a role model, a leader, and if you're not continually learning, well, it doesn't set a good standard there.
Yeah, cool guys. So that's a wrap for this particular podcast. As we said, we're going to be shooting 4 of these. This is number 1. So stay tuned for number 2, and where we dive a little bit deeper into Kyoshi Dave Kovar's mind and get a little bit more in depth about how he's been able to create a world-class team. So stay tuned, gang.